Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis, and Mirz Hashem, we will be learning today Daf Ayin Hey Amud Aleph. It's going to be a little bit of a short share, which I'm actually happy for because my voice needs a little bit of downtime. Before we begin our learning should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael on the Sunnah Matzara B'Shivya Ha'im Demein B'Yom B'Bein B'Rabasha Malkim Yerachem Aleihem V'Yitzia Mitzar L'Rvacha Me'afelu L'Oira Mishibir L'Geula Hashta B'Gala V'Zman Karev V'Neimar Amen. Our learning should be a schus refuah shalema for our real Yosef ben Miriam Rezel and Meir ben Chai Sarah. They should have a refuah shalema b'karev. So we begin on Ayin Dalid Amud Beis with a new Siman Kuf Ayin Dalid. Din Birkas Hayayin Besuda Ubay Ches Seifim. The halachas that pertain to when you make a bracha of hagafen on wine by a Suda, and here we have 8 Seifim, and I think we're going to see in this Siman some chidushim that many people are not aware of. So the Mechaber begins with Sif Aleph, and the Mechaber says, Yayin shebesoich hasuda mevarach alav boire pri hagafen ve'ein hapas poitroi. We know that when we sit down to a Suda and we're kaveh Suda al hapas, we're very familiar with the halacha that when we make a hamoitzi, the hamoitzi patters all of the other food during the meal. Not so when it comes to wine. If you make a hamoitzi and now you want to drink wine during the Suda, you have to make a bari pri hagafen on the wine. The bracha of hamoitzi on the pas does not patter the wine. The wine still requires a bari pri hagafen. Says the Mishnah Berurah Oiskat and Aleph. Ve'ein hapas poitroi. The bracha of hamoitzi on the pas does not patter the wine. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Hainu afal pi sheshoisa lishrais ha'achilu shebemeyav. This is true despite the fact that you're actually drinking the wine for su'uda purposes. The words translated literally that the Mishnah Berurah says are afal pi sheshoisa, even though you're drinking the wine lishrais ha'achila, to soak the food, shebemeyav, that you have eaten, that are in your stomach. What it means is that you're not drinking this wine as sort of a separate course. You're not drinking the wine for eineg, for pleasure, for simcha. You're drinking it as a drink during the Suda. You're drinking it to wash down the food, etc., etc. So it really is part of the Suda. Despite that, the Birkas HaMoitzi on the pas does not patter it. So again, the Mishnah Berurah is saying, despite the fact that you are really drinking this wine in order to wash down the food, so you would think that this would be included in what Chazal call dvarim abayim machmas hasuda, foods that are coming as part of the Suda, toich Suda, during the Suda, sheniftarim beberkas hapas, which are usually exempted from their own bracha by the bracha hamoitzi on the pas, kemoishe yispar lekamon, mikamakayim, nevertheless, hayol v'hayayin hu chashuv, since yayin has a special chashivus, einoi nechshav tafel hapas, yayin is not considered to be a tafel. It's not considered secondary to the bread, lihipata biberchasai, so that it should be able to be exempted from a bracha by the bracha on the pas. Va'afilu kivein beferish beberchas hapas, even if when you made the hamoitzi, you had intent beferish, liftar kol ma sheyishta b'seich ha'seuda, to patter everything else that you're going to drink during the Suda, loy mahani lo yayin. It does not work for yayin. You cannot patter yayin with a hamoitzi. Even though it seems to be coming as part of the Suda, it doesn't matter. Yayin has its own chashivus, and the chashivus of yayin says that it cannot become a tuffle to the pas, and the bracha on the pas cannot patter the yayin from its own bracha. Very important halacha. A lot of people aren't aware of this. A lot of people sit down to a meal, they wash on bread, and they have a preconceived notion that once you make a hamoitzi at the beginning of the Suda, you don't have to make a bracha rishon on anything else. and they don't realize that that does not extend to yayin. Yayin you have to make a bar priagafen on, because it has its own special chashivas. Now we go to Ayin Hey Amud Aleph Sif Beis. Says the Mechaber, Yayin poiter kol mine mashkin. You make a hagafen on yayin, the bari priagafen that you make on the wine patters any other drink during the meal from a bracha rishayna. So if at the beginning of the meal you go ahead, you make a bari priagafen on a nice bottle of Cabernet, and now you want to have a coffee or you want to have another drink, you're drinking some soda, whatever it is, or you're having a beer with your steak, it doesn't matter. You don't make a bracha rishayna on any other beverage during the meal, because the bar priagafen pattered all of the beverages from their own bracha rishayna. And says the Ramah over here, Haga afilu mi bracha rishayna. Don't think that this means that you don't have to make a bracha achrayna on the liquids, because they'll be covered with the alagafen. Says the Ramah, even the bracha rishayna. So like I said, you made a bar priagafen, you went out to a fancy restaurant, but you didn't wash. You ordered a delicious steak, and you ordered a Cabernet with the steak. You made a bar priagafen on the Cabernet, and now you decided you want to drink something else. You don't have to make a bracha rishayna on that other drink. Now, we're going to see some interesting, I guess the word is caveats and details in the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut base, yayin poiter. So first of all, why? Why does a bar priagafen on yayin pater any other drink? Says the Mishnah Berurah, shehu roish v'rishain l'chol hamashkim, because it is the roish and rishain. It's the first and foremost of all beverages. It's the most chash of a drink. Wine is the most chash of a drink. The kulam nitfalim loy, and all other drinks are considered to be tafel to yayin. So when you sit down by a suda and you make a bracha on yayin, you already made a bracha on the ikar. The yayin is the ikar drink. It doesn't matter what other drinks there are. All of the other drinks are considered tafel to the yayin, and they don't need their own bracha rishayna. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut gibel, kol mine mashkim. Now comes a very important caveat here. Says the Mishnah Berurah, when is this true? Ubelvad sheyiu lefanav al hashulchan b'shah shebirich al yayin. The Mishnah Berurah says, in order for the bar priagafen on the yayin to pater any other drink, those drinks already have to be on the table when you make the bar priagafen on the yayin. So in the example that I gave you, you went to a choshev steakhouse and you ordered a bottle of Cabernet, and you made a hagafen on the Cabernet, and now when the steak came, you decided, wow, I would really enjoy this steak with a beer, so you order a beer. Now the beer was not on the table when you made the bar priagafen on the yayin. The beer came later. In this first opinion, says the Mishnah Berurah, when is it true that the bar priagafen on the yayin will pater every other drink? Only if those drinks were already on the table. Why would this be? The reason this would be is because we want to know that when you made the bar priagafen, you had some level of das on the other drinks. If you had some level of das on the other drinks, so then we could say that the bracha on the yayin, since it's an ikar, even though it's a bar priagafen and a beer is a shahakal, but the bar priagafen on the ikar of the yayin paters the bracha on the beer, since you knew that the beer was there, and you knew that you might drink the beer, because it was al hashulchan. Continues the Mishnah Berurah in the brackets, and he says, Di'ilu lo yahayu lefanav b'shas bracha, because if the beer was not there when you made the hagafen on the yayin, av she'yaviu hamashkin lefanav b'shas she'amar adayin hayayin lefanav, even if they bring you the other drink, they brought you the beer while the bottle of Cabernet is still on the table, and therefore you were not mesiach das from the Cabernet. In other words, what the Mishnah Berurah is saying is like this. You made a bar priagafen at the beginning of the meal. Now, it's not that you made a bar priagafen, you drank a cup of wine, and now the wine is gone, and now they brought you a beer. No. You made a bar priagafen at the beginning of the meal, you're drinking wine, and the bottle of wine is still there on the table. So you're still in middle, so to speak, of drinking the yayin. You weren't mesiach das on the yayin when the beer comes out. Still, says the Mishnah Berurah, according to this opinion, it doesn't matter. Because the bottom line is it wasn't there when you made the bracha. This opinion holds that you need the other drink to be there when you make the Birchas HaGofen, in order for the Birchas HaGofen to pater that other drink. So again, in the parentheses, the Mishnah Berurah says, in the brackets, Di'ilu lo yahaya lefanav b'shas bracha, because if the other drink was not there when you made the Birchas HaGofen, av she'viu hamashke lefanav b'shas she'amar adayin yayin lefanav, even though the second drink comes out while the yayin is still there, and you weren't mesiach das from the yayin yet, lo mahani, it doesn't help. V'tzarech levarek aleim, and you need a bracha rishona on the new drink that comes out. That's the first opinion. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, v'yesh mekilin, there are those that are mekel, and they hold, afilu lo yahayu lefanav, even if the other drink was not on the table when you made the bracha, v'rak shahaya daitoi aleim, but at least you had das. So what's the machlokes over here? We have one opinion that says that the second drink has to be on the table when you make the hagofen. The more kula de kashita says, I don't need it to be on the table, but I do need that you had das. So if you're making a hagofen on the cabernet at the beginning of the meal, and the beer is not on the table, but you have in your mind, I might drink a beer with my steak, I'm having in das that when I make the hagofen on the yayin, I'm having in das the beer. This shita says that that's enough. But for sure you need to have das. If it wasn't on the table and you didn't have das, so you made a hagofen on the cabernet at the beginning of the meal, and then the steak came and you started eating the steak and you took a sip of your cabernet and you said, I really want a beer. So now the beer is completely new. You didn't have das on the beer wasn't on the table, now you're going to have to make a shahakal on the beer. Another caveat that the Mishnah Berurah says here, V'chol zeh b'shaloi kova atzmoi lishtois yayin. This is true when you weren't kaveya al hayayin. B'shaloi kova atzmoi lishtois yayin, v'rak kois zeh bilvad. You only had one drink of wine. Avalim kova lishtois yayin, if you had a kvius to drink yayin, hiskimu kama achroinim, that many achroinim agree, the poiter that the hagofen and the yayin will pater, afilu amashkin shaloi hayu lefanav b'shas habracha, even the wine that was not there when you made a bari pri hagofen, kevin chabo lefanav al kolpanim ba'oitcha yayin lefanav, since it did come to you while you were still drinking the wine. Now, what I would venture to say is that what this means is, I guess the case that I would give you is like this. I'm using the case of a steakhouse. What does it mean that you are kaveya al hayayin? So let's say you go out with 3-4 friends. You're making a siyum. You're making a nice chosh of a siyum on a Masechta of Daf Yomi, and you go to Prime Grill, and you and your buddies, and you order each order a steak, and you order a chosh of a bottle of wine. And your intent is not that you're each going to sip. You're really intending on enjoying this bottle of wine. So you order a bottle of wine, and each one of you is drinking a nice glass of wine. That's already being kaveya al yayin, I think, according to most shitas, because you're drinking yayin b'chabura. You're sitting down, you ordered a bottle of wine, you ordered a chosh of a bottle of wine, you spent a decent amount of money on it, and you're drinking the yayin b'chabura. You're each going to drink a nice glass of wine. That's being kaveya al yayin. Says the Mishnah Berurah here, if you're being kaveya on the yayin, and the yayin is still there when the beer comes out, then the achrayim say, even though it wasn't there, and it sounds like even if you didn't have das, let's see what he says in the brackets over here. If If the beer doesn't come out until you finish drinking the wine, tzarich levarach al hamashkin. Kein kazav ma'rambanat b'biurah. Im lo yushay yadayte al hamashkin kodik mar'ashtiyah. It sounds to me like the Mishnah Berurah is saying, if you're being kaveya al yayin, then as long as the beer comes out when the yayin is still there, even if you didn't have it in das, you still don't have to make a bracha on the beer. And the explanation of this is that since you're kaveya al yayin, then there's no question that the ikr drink of this Suda is yayin. And any other drink that you drink during this Suda is clearly a tuffle to the yayin. Because you were kaveya al yayin. You sat down, you said, what are we going to drink? You took out the wine menu, and you ordered a chash of a bottle of wine. So it's very apparent that the drink of this Suda is yayin. And if the drink of this Suda is yayin, then certainly anything else that comes out during the meal is clearly a tuffle, and it does not require its own bracha. At the end of the day, he says the Mishnah Berurah, Ulechatchila toiv yoser la'olam. The Mishnah Berurah says the best thing is, even if you're kaveh al yayin, even if you're going to have das, Ulechatchila toiv yoser la'olam, sheyu shar mashkin lefanav be'ez perchasei al yayin. The best thing to kriach out of any sveikus over here is that you should make sure, if you're going to want to drink anything else during the meal, make sure that it's there when you make the bari pragafen on the yayin. V'dan, you should know, she'im kidesh al yayin. This is a very important halacha that a lot of people are not familiar with. If it's Shabbos and you're making kiddush, v'dan, she'im kidesh al yayin, v'hoitzi acherim biberchasei. So now, let's imagine this, okay? It could be at home, or it could be by a kiddush. One person is getting up and he's making kiddush al yayin. Now, very often by a kiddush, you don't get any of the wine, but you're yoitza with the kiddush by the one who's making kiddush. So what happens? The one who makes kiddush. You wait a second until he drinks a little wine, and then you go and you take a piece of cake, and you make a bar minim mezainis, and you start eating, and then you get the herring, and then you get the kichel, and now you want to have a drink of soda. Now, over here, you were yoitza with the kiddush of the Makadesh, and he made a bari priagafen, but you didn't drink any wine. You need to make a shahakal on the soda now. Because you, even though you heard a bari priagafen and you said amen, you didn't drink any wine. The soda is not a tuffle. How could the soda be a tuffle? You didn't have any wine. So for sure, you must make a shahakal in that case. So says the Mishnah Berurah, V'da, Shem Kiddush al yayin. If you had Kiddush on yayin, V'hoitzi acherim biberchasei, and you were moitzi other people with your agafen. In loy tamu mikosh al Kiddush, if they didn't have wine from the Kiddush, V'roitzim lishtoi sharim ashkin, and now they want to drink other drinks, Af shahayu lifnei b'shasha birach al yayin, even though the other drinks were on the table when you made Kiddush, tzrichim levarach al hamashkin, they certainly have to make brachas on the other drinks they're going to drink. Because the mechanics over here are that the yayin is an ikr and everything else is a tafel. But if they didn't drink the yayin, they can't claim that the soda is a tafel to the yayin, and therefore they don't have to make a shahakal. If they didn't drink from kiddush, they must make another bracha. So there's a very long bir halacha here. Dibra maschil yayin paita kol minim ashkim. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. There's just two pieces of the bir halacha that I want to point out. Now, in my print of the Mishnah Berurah, if you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down into the bir halacha, there's the word vida. Says the Chafetz Chaim, vida, you should know. The had the yayin paiter kol minim ashkim. This concept that the bracha of agafen on the yayin paters all the other drinks. Hainu afilu loy kivein be'ez perchasei lifter oisam. You don't have to have kavanah to pater those drinks. They have to be on the table, so that on some level you know that they're there. They're an option. They're there when you made the hagafen, so when you made the hagafen on the ikr, that's the yayin, they became pater because they're a tuffle. But you don't have to have das that my hagafen is patering the soda. That you don't have to have. Elabistama, afilu acharmina, de memela nitfalim light. Since they were there, they become a tuffle. Now, close to the end of this bir halacha, about 4 lines off the end of the Bir Halacha. The Chavetz Chaim says, "V'nachayin lechatchila." It would be proper lechatchila. Shemi sheyirtza liftar shara mashkin. Somebody who wants to pater other drinks with yayin. So again, let's go back to the case of the kiddush. You heard kiddush from somebody else, and you don't want to have to make a shahakal now on a glass of soda. Yishta al kol panim mole lugmav. You should drink at least a mole lugma of the yayin, which is approximately 2 ounces. Really, for kiddush anyway, you should be nizar to drink a mole lugma of the yayin. We'll get there when we learn the Shabbos. What if you only had a sip of the wine and you didn't have a mole lugma? Says the Chavetz Chaim, you should find somebody who didn't drink any wine, so he definitely has to make a shahakal. That he should partner you with a shahakal on the other drinks. Ice Kandalad in the Mishnah Berurah, Filim Bracha Rishayna. The Bar Piragafet partners you from any Bracha Rishayna on the other drinks. Ma'al Kabbalah Siman Reish Chesif Tezayin of the Mishnah Berurah Shaml Indian Bracha Achrayna. We'll discuss later on if the Ala Geffen is going to pater the Bar Defashas on the other drinks. Okay, Sif Gimel. Imein lo yela kais echad. If you sit down to a Suda and you only have 1 glass of wine available, Imein lo yela kais echad, menichai ad la'achar hamazon. Preferably, you should not drink that glass of wine. We're talking about a Suda that you washed on. So you sat down, you washed, you ate a Suda, and you only have 1 cup of wine available. Says the Mechaber, menichai ad la'achar hamazon. Leave it over until after you finish eating. Umevarech alav. And bench al hakais. Say birkas hamazon on a kais. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katnei menichai. Ta'afilu l'man da'amar birkas hamazon eina tu'una kais. Even according to the Mandiyama that says that really you don't need a kais for birkas hamazon. Mikamaka mitzvah ben hamuvchar yesh bazeh. It definitely is a mitzvah ben hamuvchar to bench al hakais. Im yuchal asais b'kais kidl kamon sevikof bebeis sif aleph. Now, I think it's even brought down in one of the Dirshu footnotes, we'd never bench on a kais unless we have a mezumin. So this doesn't even start if you don't have a mezumin. If you don't have a mezumin, this halacha doesn't even start. If you have a mezumin, so the Mishnah Berurah is saying over here that if you have a mezumin, and you have the ability to do birkas hamazon on a kais, and now you have only 1 cup of wine available during the Suda, don't drink it, leave it over birkas hamazon. That's the opinion of the Mishnah Berurah. Nevertheless, if you're thirsty during the meal, and you have nothing else to drink but that 1 cup of wine, then the Mishnah Berurah says an interesting thing. Mutav, it would be better, sheyishte kaidem, that you should drink this cup of wine before benching. Why? Kidei lotzes gam das Mordechai, to be Mekayim the Shita of the Mordechai, Shehuva b'Ramal Kaban Siman Kot Tzadik Zayin Siv Daled, Shesover, who holds the Kishetaev Lishtois, that if somebody is thirsty at the end of a meal, Einoi Chayiv Min HaTorah Levarach Birkas Hamazon Not Sheyishta. Let's remember, the pasuk says Va'achalta v'savata uverachta. The chiv to bench midaraisa, Va'achalta, you'll eat, v'savata, and you'll be satisfied. That's when there's a daraisa to bench. The Mordechai says, if you're thirsty at the end of the meal before benching, you can't say it's v'savata. Therefore, you can't say that you have a chiv daraisa to bench. So, if you're sitting by a meal and you're thirsty and the only thing that you have to drink is wine, says the Mishnah Berurah, drink the wine, so now you won't be thirsty. Now you'll have a chiv daraisa to bench, and bench with a chiv daraisa. Instead of saving the kais for benching, and benching a la kais, but not having a chiv daraisa to bench. Okay, we're going to stop over here. A little bit short today, like I said at the beginning, and we'll start with Sif Dal next time. Thank you for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be making like Klal Yisrael. The Rosham should send Yeshua's refuas, Shidduchim, Parnasa to all those in need. We should be Zaychet to see the Geula Shlema with the Bias Gal Tzedek B'Meher of Yameinu. Amen. Be well.